Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos una vez más al canal. Yo soy Daniel Sepúlveda y el día de hoy me encuentro con nada más y nada menos que Elise Kova, autora de fantasía que nos está visitando aquí en la Feria del Libro de Bogotá. And Elise, welcome to Colombia. How has everything been so far?
Everything has been amazing. I haven't had too much time to sightsee, but I have had time to eat arepa and empanada and meet amazing people.
Great.
So far perfect.
Well, I wanted to start with something that I think it's impressive, and it's that you've written more than 40 books in your career. I want to know, how do you do that? What is your secret? Like, how can you make more than 40 books so far?
Well, so I think I might be around 40, but I think I only have 30 published, so it's much less impressive.
It's still impressive.
I don't know. I always say I have more ideas than time when it comes to my writing. I have several ideas still that I haven't even started. And so, honestly, it's just a passion of mine. I just want to keep writing and I want to keep doing it and meeting readers, and I'm lucky to do what I do.
And thinking about your writing process, specifically in your entire career, there has been a book that you consider maybe the one that you enjoyed the most writing, or maybe one that was the most challenging so far?
Oh, goodness. So I think the book that will always hold a special place in my heart is Air Awakens, because that was my first book. And then the book that I had a lot of fun writing was A Deal with the Elf King. I actually wrote that at the start of the pandemic, and I was very sad, and I wanted to write something that lifted me up. And so it really made me happy at a very hard time, and I was one of the lucky ones in the pandemic, all things considered. But I think the most challenging one might have been, it's not translated into Spanish yet, though, so I hesitate to say it, but my Vortex Chronicles series was a big challenge for me to write.
Which is also a spin-off of the Air Awakens series.
It is, yes. There are 4 total series set in the Air Awakens universe, but you can read them, although we were just talking about reading orders, you can technically read them in any order. So you can start with The Trial of Sorcerers and go back to Air Awakens, or do it the other way around.
Something I admire about authors, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I had the idea that you were a self-published author in English, right?
Yes.
And you have had this career as a self-published author. Right now, I know that Arcana Academy, which is your new book, will be published by Del Rey. Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way. But I wanted to know about that process, how different it is to write as an independent author versus working with a publisher.
I think for me, the actual creative process is very similar. I have an idea, I write it, I edit it. That all is, the only difference maybe is that with my traditionally published books with Del Rey, I'm working with the Del Rey editor versus the editors that I've worked with previously that I connected with on my own. But I think that both paths have a lot of pros and cons, for sure. I've really enjoyed self-publishing. I still want to do it. I still like doing both. But traditional publishing opens doors that self-publishing can't, and especially with things like other languages. I'm so lucky to work with Urano, because I unfortunately, I'm so sorry, dear readers, I don't speak Spanish. And having a publisher who can translate and do a good job and bring it to countries like Colombia just means so much to me, and I couldn't do that myself.
And talking a little about music, because I read that I think it was for Air Awakens, you were inspired by the song Clarity by Seth. Yes. So I wanted to know a little more about that, if that has happened with other books, with other projects that you've done in your career.
I write a lot to music. I have playlists almost for all of my books. I have songs that I listen to for specific types of scenes. So I definitely continue listening to music. I haven't had quite the same, one song is the total inspiration, but there are songs that are sort of like theme songs to different characters or books.
Nice. And then there's something else that I love about your book. So I discovered you from The Alchemist of Loom a while ago.
That is a rare one to discover me from.
Yeah. So and something that caught my eye right away was the covers of your books. And I think that's something that all your books have in common, is that they have amazing covers. And well, we'll be showing some of them in the edition, but here is Air Awakens, or El Despertar de la Bruja del Aire in Spanish. We got Un Trato con el Rey de los Elfos, A Deal with the Elf King. And then I don't remember the name of this one in English, but it's La Caída del Príncipe del Fuego.
Fire Falling.
Fire Falling, exactly. And I wanted to ask you, how is the design process of your covers? Do you have maybe the same designer for an entire saga, or how does it work?
So For my self-published books, I find the illustrators, I talk with them about the projects. I usually, if I'm approaching an illustrator, I've already looked at their portfolio, I like their style, I think it fits the world, I give them the brief. And I do like to give illustrators a little bit of creative freedom, because I'm working with an illustrator because I like their artistic style. Maybe it's not perfectly accurate, but as long as nothing major is wrong, I'm very happy to let them sort of be creative. I try and keep the same illustrator throughout a whole series. It doesn't always work out, and that's okay. Sometimes illustrators get busy and they can't take on another book. With a traditional publisher, they find the illustrators usually, but I've been very lucky to still have a say in the process with my publishers.
And then, well, I'm a big nerd for everything related to the process with which authors create their books. And while reading A Deal with the Elf King, Era Awakens, The Alchemist of Loom, I've noticed that there's a lot of work in the world building that you do. Can you tell us a little about that process with which you create these worlds for your different books?
Gosh, how much time do we have? I love world building.
I noticed.
So I always start thinking of power is one of the big things I think of. Who has it? How do they get it? And power can be physical power, it can be soft power like a religion or a faith, it can be magic, of course, but I think a lot of times in our world, the world turns around power, who has it, who doesn't, what they do to get it. So that's something I think about. I also love starting with my magic systems. I love building magic systems.
Yes.
And many times it all comes from like a single kernel of inspiration that it all sort of comes from, like The Alchemist of Loom. That one came from a thought of, what if magic was in the blood so much that it was actually in your organs? It's a very dark and gritty book.
And then I wanted to ask you, how did you keep track of everything that you do in a series? Because you also do like 5-book series, and how do you keep track of, little details about the characters or even about the world and the magic system that you create?
I'm convinced that I forget things all the time, and I'm just waiting for readers to be like, that was wrong. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, you're right. But I have book Bibles, is what many authors will call them, where we just keep track of everything and make notes. And honestly, the characters and the worlds become so real for me that I just sort of fall into it and kind of know instinctually different elements of the characters and world.
And after writing so many books in different worlds and universes, would you live in any of those worlds? Like, do you have any favorite one, or are they too dangerous for you to be like, no, I actually am very comfortable here?
I would probably say I would live in Era Awakens after book 5, after the end of the Era Awakens series. Because Vala...
Not during the book series.
No, Vala and Aldrich go through some things. The Empire goes through some things. So maybe that one, and probably Midscape. I think Midscape is a more peaceful world. I'd probably do okay there.
And how does it feel when you finish a series like Era Awakens, which is 5 books? Like, do you feel the nostalgia of a work that has been finished, or maybe you already know that you're going to write something else in that same universe?
I always have more ideas because the story lives on. Sometimes I know exactly what I want to write next. Sometimes I have to sit with it and think about it for a while, and make sure that that's really what I want to write. But like I said, I always have more ideas than time.
And then just to end this interview, I wanted to ask about 3 recommended books that you would like to share with us. It can be your favorite ones. It can be maybe a book that you've been reading lately and you would like to recommend. Which could be those 3 books that you would like to mention today?
Oh, goodness.
It can be also your books.
I always get so stressed out. So I would say, of my books, if you haven't started Era Awakens yet, I would recommend that, just because it's a long journey. Vala goes through a lot, but I think the payoff at the end is worth the journey. Or maybe A Duel with the Vampire Lord, just because I had a lot of fun writing that.
I don't have that one, but I have the first one.
It's in the same world. This one's also good. And then of other authors' books, probably one of the last books I read that I finished and immediately went back and read it again was a book called Uprooted by Naomi Novik. And that book was just really special to me. And then I love The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle Jensen.
Nice. Well, Elise, thank you so much for this interview. Gracias a ustedes también por ver esta entrevista y nosotros nos estaremos viendo en una próxima ocasión. Chao.
Chao.